Stephen Galster, he's the international chairman of Freeland, which happens to be an NGO campaigning against wildlife and human trafficking. Good to have you on the show. It's said that this coronavirus came out of a wet market in Wuhan, in China's Hubei province. If I could begin by asking you to explain to our viewers who are not as familiar with this whole thing, what the conditions are like in wet markets and how it may have been transmitted from an animal to humans.
Sure. Well, a wet market like that, like many wildlife markets across Asia, will have many different species of animals that have been taken from their natural environment, mixed together close to people. And you might have a virus that's, a bat or a pangolin would be okay with that jumps to another animal or to a person that has no immune system for it. It's as simple as that. So these markets will have two kinds of animals on them. They will be trafficked or they will be bred in captivity. Usually there's a mix, but these animals are not normally in close proximity to each other. You might have animals from Indonesia, from Africa, from China, all in the same small area, possibly dead, possibly still alive, and next to people who are handling them, who are selling them, or who are buying them and eating them.
Stephen, it's also believed that this last SARS outbreak, which I think was 2003, it also came out from a similar market. Do you think after sort of two big outbreaks, China will be sort of forced to reevaluate this? I know that you're working hard to campaign against this, but will China finally be forced to take the necessary steps?
Yeah, there's no doubt that SARS did come from a similar market. It jumped from civets, possibly a bat to a civet. At that time, China's response was to destroy 846,000 animals. That clearly was not the solution. This time, they did learn better, and they closed the Wuhan market and decided to close all the such markets across the country. And they even took it a step further, banned wildlife trade and even wildlife consumption. Now the question is, since that's a $74 billion a year industry inside China alone, will the forces behind the market whittle away that ban and do the same thing they did after SARS, which is to say, we can handle this, we'll have a cleaner market now, everything will be okay. Nobody should listen to that, that's for sure. And I would just add that this is not just a China problem. These kind of markets are all across Asia, so we're trying to get them all shut down. And we have to remember, this is a global trade. This could happen anywhere in the world.
That's actually the point that I wanted to make. So yeah, China may be sort of like the mecca of all this, but we're seeing it all across Southeast Asia as well, and other parts of the world.
Yes, well, let's not forget, the United States is the second biggest importer of wildlife in the world. The EU as a bloc is the third biggest consumer of wildlife in the world. So you've got all kinds of people buying wildlife for different reasons, exotic pets, foods, etc., in every corner of the world. So when you take an African gray parrot from, Africa and some other kind of bird from South America, you can get bird flu, you can get MERS, you can get Ebola. There's all kinds of viruses, and there's new strains that we haven't even seen yet. So if we don't shut down the global commercial wildlife trade, we will certainly at some point get another virus outbreak that will hit us even harder than this. So during this period, we need to shut down the trade.
It's interesting. It sort of gives a different meaning when President Trump calls this a Chinese virus, being sort of like the U.S. being a main buyer of all this. All right, let's go back to the tradition. We know what needs to be done, but the reality is that these practices are deeply rooted in Chinese rural life. I mean, it goes back to the time of Mao Zedong. Are you confident at all that they'll be able to break these traditions?
It's a great question, and everybody's watching that. It really depends on how long President Xi can hold his firm stand on this. He's got the Politburo around him supporting a complete ban, but like I said, there are economic forces within the country that will want to whittle this down and water down the ban. So nobody knows, but China is hosting a meeting, if the meeting goes through in October, a global biodiversity meeting, where some countries are thinking of tabling the issue of making sure these bans are permanent. So that's what we're pushing for now. Is we want to convert China from a pariah into a global wildlife champion.
Good luck with this all, Stephen. I think you're doing a very important job, and good luck in the future. I'm hoping that this is not all about the money, but thank you very much for joining us here on the NewsHour.